red meat is still widely considered to be a contributor to the development of heart disease. Now, the science shows us otherwise. Certainly the experience I'm having with lots and lots of patients and the bigger community that's out there around this shows us otherwise. But it is still a very deeply, widely held belief that red meat is a driver of heart disease, and therefore oftentimes, despite the success that patients are having, losing weight, improving their diabetes, getting off medicines, they get scared out of continuing it by their other doctors.
Eggs are on that list as well, right? Egg yolks specifically. Yep. The USDA or FDA, they're finally saying, oh, eggs actually are healthy. They're finally taking some ownership of what people have suspected for a long time, that the data was incorrect. And they're finally saying, oh, actually, these should be added to the healthy list. It hasn't happened long enough for us to truly see the ripple effect of that. 10 years from now, maybe finally we'll get people not splitting up the egg.
I agree with you. I think it is going to take quite a while. We see this all the time. The systems like the healthcare system, they're very slow to change. And unfortunately, this information doesn't really get communicated far and wide like it should. Eggs are not bad for your health. That should be very widely communicated, but it's not. For a lot of doctors, right, it's just too hard to change. When you tell a physician most of what we understand around heart disease is wrong, that can be kind of jarring. That can be difficult. And a lot of doctors, like a lot of people we talked about earlier, right? They just don't want to change. It's going to be hard to get them to change.
I mean, I think still people are struggling with the fat is good for you. I remember when that devil's food cookie came out and it was fat free, but yet it was a cookie. I remember my mom was buying them all. Everyone was freaking out thinking, oh, I can eat these because I'm not going to get fat on it. Not realizing that actually when you get excess sugar, that converts into fat, of course, right? People didn't know this. The question is that we only know what we know. If you now look back at the medical industry and you go like, well, gosh, they've had so much wrong. How do you fully let what we're currently doing land as it being right when it also could be wrong? Do you know what I mean by the question?
I understand that completely, right? And I'm not egotistical enough, right, to say that, yeah, I know I'm absolutely right. I know how it's helped me. I see how it's helping the patients that I'm working with. I see all of the great health improvements that are going on within our community. And I also see the previous recommendations just did not work. And that's something that's very hard to ignore. The messaging around low-fat cholesterol as the primary cause of heart disease, right? That's been our focus for 70 years now, right? Going back to the 1950s. And it's just not working. You're right. I might be wrong. We might all be wrong. But clearly what was being done before was not the right approach and was not working. That's why I think it's time for us to change.
What do you think we are getting right now? Like, for example, seed oils. Do you think they are as bad as, social media influencers are telling us now? Are they probably the bigger culprit of inflammation than saturated fats, for example?
Well, they're definitely a bigger problem than saturated fat is, because saturated fat is not a problem when it comes to our health. The real question is, right, are seed oils more harmful than sugar, essentially, right? Or more harmful than refined carbohydrates? The honest answer is, I don't know the answer to that. I just know that processed food, which combines those two things, is very problematic. And so that's kind of the first focus that I hope to see. Let's get back to eating whole, real food. I think that's where this starts with. Over time, I guess we can then work on the nuance of, was it the seed oils or, was it the sugar and the refined carbohydrates? But I don't think it matters. If you just get back to eating whole, real food, the problem is fixed. And neither of those things are essential in our diet. And neither of those things are really necessary for us to have enough food and good nutrition. That's kind of where I start with. That is an area that I think we're making some headway in. People are truly waking up to the fact that all of this processed food is not good for us. That's where I think we need to focus on and think we need to start.
When you were at your heaviest, before you started making your dietary changes, what were your 2 or 3 crutch foods that you were overindulging in? And then what did you cut out? What were the first few foods that you cut out?
I was definitely, very heavy on bread and pasta. Didn't think that was problematic, right? The candy, the cake, the cookies, right? We all know that that's not healthy for us, right? But bread, pasta, this this is the base of the food pyramid, and we think that's healthy for us. That's really what went first. And like I said, I wasn't a real big sugar person. I didn't drink soda by the gallons like I know some people do. I was never one to put sugar in my coffee or anything like that. The biggest thing that needed to go, things like the bread and the pasta that I thought was not harmful for my health.
Because sometimes we eat to numb any feelings going on or anything. What came up for you as you cut out these comfort foods? Did your shadow side kind of rear its head and you're like, I didn't realize I was trying to keep this down? Or was it effortless for you?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was effortless. I don't necessarily think I had that real strong element of comfort eating, food addiction, and that is a real issue for many people. I was able to do it. I saw pretty quick results, right? And that's kind of self-reinforcing. The flip side of this, and this is a lot of what I talk to people about, right? It's not even so much about restricting those things. It's reintroducing those other things like steak and ground beef. I would shy away from in the past, and eggs, another great example. Those are foods that I actually love to eat. So in some ways I was able to replace with those, and that kept me satisfied and satiated. And that was my experience. Now, I acknowledge that many people, they have to deal with the emotional eating and the stress eating. Yes, if you're going to have long-term success, those issues do need to be addressed. I noticed, and many other people notice, right, is when you start getting metabolically healthy, it has a positive effect on your mental well-being in addition to the physical effects, right? And again, I'm not someone that had a diagnosis of depression or anything like that. I just noticed my mood being more stable, right? Listen, I'm a heart surgeon. I have a high stress life by nature. I just deal with it better these days when I'm metabolically healthy. And I know a lot of other people have experienced similar changes in their mental well-being as well as their physical well-being.
I love that you just brought up metabolic health. Let's dive into that a bit. I think that's a term that's being thrown around even more right now with the MAHA stuff. But let's pretend myself or anyone listening doesn't know what that means. What is metabolic health?
The way that I refer to metabolic health is it simply refers to your body's ability to properly use the inputs that you're giving it. And the primary input we give our bodies is the food that we eat. You can talk about how do we measure that. If you can't measure something, how do you improve it? How do you know where you stand? And so I always point people to the 5 basic measures of metabolic health. And those 5 measures are your waist circumference, your blood pressure, your fasting blood glucose level, your HDL cholesterol level, and your triglyceride level. People can look up the numbers. If people want to go to my website, ifixhearts.com, right on the front page, free. You can just go through the quiz, put in your numbers, and find out where you stand. That's a very simple thing that everyone can and should do. Find out those 5 measures, find out where you stand regarding your metabolic health. Because the shocking statistic is that 93% of the adults in the United States are not metabolically healthy. Because when
93%.
93%. It means that you're at increased risk of not only heart disease that I focus so much on, but cancer, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, all of these chronic diseases that are plaguing us today. They basically all track back to metabolic health.
If you enjoyed the clip from the podcast, make sure to check out the next video up here or head over to watch the full episode down here. And before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Come on. Yeah, thanks for watching.